Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So, are we start the session?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, can anybody tell me where we stopped?
We were
Anyone?
on the deep sleep stage.
We were in the deep sleep state when it finished yesterday. Yeah.
On that shloka.
Right. Right. Okay. I was a little bit. I was worried. I thought everybody went to sleep. We were in the deep sleep state. Yeah. So correct. You are right. So we were in uh, that particular shloka, which is I think the deep sleep. So we discussed for the last 2 days. We have been looking at this. The four stages. The three stages which are familiar to all human beings, right? And we said the Upanishad says that there is also a fourth stage which is not common to all human beings but which can be understood if you put in a little understanding into it. Now the Upanishad started by saying that there is this blessed Om which is made of three syllables A, U and Im, and that A represents the waking state which is the Vaishvanara. Why Vaishvanara? Because it is that state of wakefulness in which we have a tendency to enjoy the world. Then came the Swapna, that is the second, that the U of A, which represents the Tejasa or the dream state. We discussed that also. Now dream state is called Tejasa and Swapna. Swapna because it's a dream, and Tejasa because it is naturally lit. Even though we are sleeping and our eyes are closed, everything that you see in a dream is illumined. So it has its own natural illumination without external light. Then we came to deep sleep. Now in deep sleep, as was discussed by us yesterday, there is a blissfulness, but there is no cognition. There is no cognition of outside objects. The Upanishad puts it like this. Fifth, yatra supto nakama kana kamam kamyate nakamachana swapnam pashyati tat shushuptam. When one being fast asleep does not desire any desire whatsoever and does not see any dream whatsoever, that is defined as deep sleep in the Upanishad. State when one does not desire you. When you are deeply asleep, in dream there are desires. In waking state there are desires. But in deep sleep, one does not desire anything outside or inside, um, and does not see any dream also. Such a state is called deep sleep. Then Shushuptastano ekibhutaha prajnanagana इव आनंदमयो हि आनंदभुक् चेतोमुखः prajnas pada. So this is the third part of Om, which is represented by the word ma, which one is just a mass of cognition, not particularly cognizing anything, but which is full of bliss, and who actually experiences the joy, the bliss, but whose face is thought. That was the last part of the Cheto Mukha. Its face is thought, which means in that deep sleep, the first manifestation that happens is thought. In deep sleep there is no thought also, there is no thinking. Uh, However, as we discussed yesterday, there seems to be a witness to deep sleep also, although we are not aware at that time. When you wake up, there is some entity in us which says, "Oh, I had a wonderful, blissful sleep." Though at that point of deep sleep, the entity did not remember. But now when you wake up, there is a memory of that blissful sleep, so much so that when one is fully, deeply asleep and is enjoying the bliss of sleep, it is highly irritable if somebody wants to wake you up. Terrible. In fact, all children rebel against parents because, most children, because they say wake up in the morning, do this, do that. There's the time when I'm really enjoying myself inside. So much happiness, blissfulness. Wake up, I remember it. Which is why when you are fast asleep, you have an alarm, it rings once, you switch it off. It rings twice, you switch it off. You rings third, you switch it off. Why? Because you don't, this is the only time when you have full bliss without thought. And then thought comes. And the first thought that comes is, I am. When I wake up, I am aware that I am. When I am, then there is the room, there is the window, there is the bird outside, there is the other person sleeping next to me, if there is anybody, and so on and so forth. So the first phase of this is thought. And when thought is completely quiet, then there is Shushupti. But not totally quiet, because there is an awareness when you wake up where you gather all your memories and they are back again. Temporarily, they have been suspended. Not wiped out, suspended, in suspension. Okay. Now, the sixth sloka of this Upanishad says, Esha Sarveshwaraha, Esha Sarvajna, Esho Antaryami, Esha Yoni Sarvasya Prabhavapyayo Hi Bhutanam. Which means, this person who is in deep sleep, who is blissfully enjoying deep sleep, who is free of all opposites, who has no desire whatsoever, which everybody possesses in deep sleep, that person is the Lord of all, the knower of all, the inner controller from which all controls happen. This is the source of all. This is the beginning and the end of beings. Okay, let's look at this carefully. This is the Lord of all, which means in that point, when one is completely free of all disturbances, when there is no opposites, when there is no desire. The moment you have desire, you are no longer the Lord, you are a slave. Any desire. See this carefully. Now I am going to tell you something, a story. Parables are more understood than actual statements. Don't guess from this story that you should all remain unmarried, because the story is a little funny. Please get married and so on. That's also a great experience. Your husband or your wife are the great levelers. They show you where your ego is and how to break it. So do it. But there is no better ego cutter than your husband or your wife. Outside you can put up a face, inside they know who you are. Okay. So anyway, I am not advocating that, but this story is about something like that. So don't get wrong. Don't think I am preaching, don't get married. Well, if you don't want, up to you, but I am. Apparently in a small little kingdom, there was a king who gave everything, whatever people asked, helped them out and so on. But there was one condition. Every day they had to go there, stand in a line and praise the king. You are the greatest. You are the... Then he would give them gold and whatever. So, entire kingdom, everybody went except there was a temple there where they, not even a temple like an ashram, with a temple of course inside, where there lived 3 brahmacharis. You know who are brahmacharis? Huh? Unmarried people. 3 yogis lived there. I'm not saying all yogis are unmarried, but anyway, they lived there, 3 of them. These were the only guys who wouldn't go there to the king. So the king said one day, what is this? Everybody is coming and saying, praising me, you are the greatest, and they're all getting, why are these guys not coming? What's wrong with these guys? So the Diwan, the Prime Minister of the king, he said, sir, give me a chance and I will make them come to you. How? He said, you leave it to me. So the next day, he sent 3 dancing girls to the temple. Okay? Very pretty looking dancing girls were sent into the temple. They went to worship first. Then the 3 brahmacharis who were looking after the temple, they gave them prasad to eat. This continued for some time. Then they started getting more prasad than normal people. Then they started getting some flowers from the Devi temple. And very soon they were, the 3 brahmacharis used to anxiously wait to hear the jingling of the anklets of these girls when they came. And soon, believe it or not, they got married. All 3. The next day, they were also before the king. You are the greatest, this, that. Why? Because the wife said, go get money and come, go. Why are you sitting here and wasting your time? So, when the Upanishad here says, I mean, that's just a story, okay. The Upanishad here says, this is the Lord of all, this is the knower of all, this is the inner controller, and he has no desire whatsoever. Which means in that pure state, there is nothing to desire. First of all, nothing is visible to desire. You are in your own true state. And that state, according to Upanishad, is the Lord, the controller of all that happens, and is the source of all. Why is it called source of all? Because when you wake up, it is from that source that the whole world grows out of you. While in deep sleep, it is suspended. But when you wake up, where does the whole world come? From your own consciousness of the whole world. Suppose you are sitting and the whole world is in front of you. If you are not conscious of it, what is the use of the world? What does the world mean to us? Nothing. So it is the essence of our consciousness, awareness. The true source of all awareness is that which is there in deep sleep, which is blissful in itself and has therefore no desire whatsoever. It is also the beginning and end of all things. So why beginning and end of all things? When you wake up, the whole world begins for you. For me, when you go into deep sleep, the whole world has ended. There is nothing. So it is the beginning and the end of everything. But there is one problem here, major problem, that in that state one is not aware of this. One is not conscious of this. Now just think of some quirk of fate or some movement of by some accident, let's say, for temporarily by some accident. In that blissful deep sleep, where there is no desire and therefore one is in full happiness. It is from which the whole world comes and goes back again. In that beautiful state, just think of a possibility that suddenly one gets aware of it. Otherwise we are not aware of it. We are aware of it. We remember the blissful state when you wake up. But by the time it is gone, we are back to the world. What if happens by some quirk of accident or something? It's not accident, we'll come to that. I am saying all this to prepare you for 7th shloka. Suppose in that state there is the awareness fully intact, not aware of this or that, the awareness of pure being, which is no desire, which is blissful, and where there is no dream, no waking, just a blissful center, if one is aware of that, suppose. That is called, when that awareness happens, then it's called Turiya, the 4th state. If this can happen, then that state is separated from Shushupti and it's called Turiya. So we'll go to the next sloka. I'll explain again once more. The 7th sloka. Na antaprajna, na antaprajna. Like we said before, no recognition of internal objects, na bahish prajna, no recognition of outer objects, not what cognizes both of them, not a mass of cognition, not cognitive, not non-cognitive. They are trying to rule out all the ideas we have in our mind about things. Okay? Because when ideas are all over and exhausted, there is only awareness. It is unseen, incapable of being spoken of, ungraspable, without any distinctive marks, agrahyam, alakshanam, achintyam, which cannot even be thought about, unthinkable, avyaparyashyam, ekatma pratyasaram, unthinkable with no marks, unnameable, the essence of the knowledge of one's own self, that into which the whole world is resolved, the peaceful, shantam, the benign, shivam, the advaitam, non-dual. There is no two in that, there is only one. Chaturtham manyate sa atma sa vijñeya. That is the 4th quarter, that is the real self, that is to be known. Now this is a contradiction because he says it is ungraspable and unknowable and then say that is the thing to be known. So how does one do that? How does one do that? When all attempts to know it cease, knowing that it cannot be grasped by the ordinary mind, when the mind has gone beyond ordinary modes of thought, when it is only resting in pure awareness, it's when it is as if everything else, all parameters of deep sleep are there, but there is awareness. In deep sleep, there is no awareness. Here there is awareness. When this happens, that is the understanding of the true self. When that self is understood, one knows that the whole world has evolved from it and the whole world goes back into it. Temporarily we can say that psychologically in our day-to-day life, the entire world comes out of this and goes back into it. This is the 4th state. So what I want to stress on this point is, The Upanishad is not talking about any doctrine or any instructions. It's just discussing the three states plus one of consciousness which is common to all human beings. Now the last part is a little bit, I know, confusing, because if Turiya is that where that which exists there in its purity can neither be defined nor grasped, nor is beyond our ordinary mind even to think of, then how can we say in the end that that is to be known? That's where the, okay. Now I am going to again give you a metaphor. There was this great king called Janaka in Videha. According to the Ramayana, he is the father of Sita. But he was a king, but he was also a great rishi. Now, his teacher, his guru or his whatever teacher, was the great sage Yajnavalkya. So one day, this king Janaka had a dream. In the dream, he saw himself as a beggar. Torn clothes, no food to eat. Can happen in a dream. No food to eat, suffering with hunger. It was a long dream. Then he woke up. He woke up, he found that he was in his palace, in his bedroom. No sign of the beggar or anything out there. So as he got up and washed his face and came out, the great sage Yajnavalkya appeared, his teacher. So he welcomed him, made him sit down and so on, offered him something to eat and drink, and he said, "Sir, I have one problem here, one question. Till now, till 10 minutes ago, I was a beggar. I felt the pangs of hunger. My clothes were torn. I didn't know which way to turn. Then I see now, I wake up or whatever has happened, I'm a king. Now can you tell me which is real, please? Am I a king or am I a beggar? Because, if suppose the dream had continued for a longer time, if I would have been a beggar, it has broken, so now I feel I am the king. The question Yajnavalkya had was, what if what I am saying is waking state is also a long dream like the dream which I had? And how real is it that I am a king? There is no need of a test tube to discuss this. This is between you and me. It's a psychological problem. So which is my real? So what happens? Then Yajnavalkya explains to him, my dear fellow, the dream, while you are in the dream state, the waking state is not real. While you are in the waking state, the dream state is not real. You know how real the dream is? If you are chased by a tiger in a dream, if you have experienced any such dream, you will know it. A tiger or Dracula is chasing you in the dream. How real it is. You are running for your life. So much so that when you wake up, you say, oh my God, this was a dream, okay. But still your heart is thumping and you are still sweating. Why? Because it was real at that point. When you wake up, it's not there. So Yajnavalkya says to our man, Janaka, what if one day you wake up also from this waking state, which you think is now different from the dream, and say, oh my God, what a long dream it was. Where am I? Now please remember, in all these states, waking, dream, deep sleep, there is a witness who is watching everything. That doesn't change, because if there is no witness, you won't know any of these things. Yajnavalkya says to Janaka, actually only that witness is real. All the different states are unreal, not because they are absolutely unreal, but because they are only relatively real. The only thing that is permanent in this matter is my true self, which is watching everything, my witness. And that witness in its purest form, but not when one is asleep. It's there in its purest form even one is in deep sleep, but is not aware. If that pure being is aware, then it becomes your true self. That is the only reality. Everything else is like the movie you see on TV, Matrix. Only reality is that being. People have for years called that being by different names. Some people call it Atman because it is the witness of everything that's happened. Some people call it the Ruh because it is that which is not material, which is the witness of everything that is happening. Some people call it a spark of the divine. So different mystics have given it different names, but if they're truly mystics, not just people who read books and so on, who have some experience in this matter, they all come to this point that there is in us an eternal witness, which survives even the body is gone. And this eternal witness is the reality, and everything else is woven around it because of our five senses. When one touches that, there is absolute peace because you have touched that which is not distractible, which is pure, which is by its very nature blissful. And when one reaches there, there's complete balance. There is no more conflict, there is no more contradictions. You know, when there is conflict and contradictions, you will note there are always two things. Here there is only one. When there is only one, there cannot be any conflict, any contradiction. Now, for those who explore this individually, it begins with being able to calm the mind and set all conflicts aside. And then delve deep and go to the source from which the whole thing comes. Why is it called unknowable? Because it cannot be known through the senses, nor can it be touched by the ordinary mind, which is based only on the three-dimensional world. It requires some other instrument to look. And that instrument, we are saying, exists in all human beings, but has been not working for a long time and therefore rusted and gone. And the whole practice of spiritual exercises is to wake up this faculty in us. When that wakes up, then you see. The other reason why it's called ungraspable is because when you need to grasp something, there has to be two. One thing is here and I am here, I want to grasp it. It could be idea also. But when I am free of all grasping, then I am resting in that state, so there is nothing to grasp. Which is why it's called ungraspable. Free yourself from all grasping. Our problem is because of grasping. We try. Before we move forward from this, I want to tell you another little story, which is from Kabir Das. You heard of Kabir Das? Kabir Das was a great mystic who lived in Banaras. He was a weaver by profession. And Kabir Das said that what we desire in this world, all of us desire. What do we desire? All of us. Happiness. We all desire happiness. And the whole movement of life is towards greater and greater happiness. Fine, no problem. The whole evolution is a moving towards greater happiness. Now, Kabir said that the human being is like the musk deer. You know what's a musk deer? It's called Kasturi Mriga. There's a kind of particular deer, actually there is, it lives in the Himalayan steppes, which it has a little gland near its navel which produces musk, Kasturi. And in that season when it comes, it's a beautiful fragrance in the air. And this poor deer, not knowing that the source is coming from under his belly, looks for it everywhere in the forest, wondering where is this fragrance coming from. Kabir Das said the fragrance is in you, in your heart, whether you call it Hridaya, whether you call it heart, whether you call, like the Sufis say, the qalb. It's all inside you. All the happiness is in you. It is the source which remains when there is the state called Turiya. There is no moving out, there is no moving in, everything is still. And that is the ultimate bliss. Kabir said, so instead of searching for it outside, for a second can you stop and turn within and look. Perhaps you would find it inside. So this is the state described as Turiya in this Upanishad. Now, the 8th Shloka says, Soyam Atma Adhyaksharam Omkaro Adhimatram Pada Matra Matrascha Pada Akara Ukara Makara Iti, which means this is the self, the true self in all of us. All of us is not used here, I am saying. If I have that self, you must be also having that self. It cannot be that I am unique. This is the self which is of the nature of the syllable Om. In regard to its elements, the quarters are the elements, namely the letter A, the letter U, and the letter Ma. Ninth sloka repeats what started with the first sloka, almost. It says, Vaishvanara, A, whose sphere of activity is the waking state, is the letter A, the first element. It's either from the root up to obtain or from being the first. He who knows this obtains all desires. He becomes the first. How would he attain all desires? Because he discovered that the ultimate desire is to know the self. So he has already reached there. He is the first. Swapnasthanas Taijasa. Taijasa, whose sphere of activity is the dream state, is the letter U, the second element. He who knows this exalts himself verily, the continuity of knowledge, and becomes equal. In his family is born no one who does not know the Brahman. Now, this is a long statement. I think it's a little exaggerated statement. That in this family nobody is born who does not know the Brahman. I would say in a modified way. Perhaps somebody has touched that. In that family, people who are born will have the capacity to reach that faster than others in whose family such a thing has not taken place. Perhaps. Then, prajna, whose activity is the state of deep sleep. Shushuptasthana prajno makaras tritiya matra. Prana, prajna means what? Awareness. Whose sphere of activity is the state of deep sleep is the letter ma, the third element. Either from the root me, which means to measure, or because of merging. He who knows this measures all this and merges into himself. The fourth is that which has no elements, Turiya, which we discussed at length. The fourth is that which has no elements, which cannot be spoken of, into which the world is resolved. It is benign, it is non-dual. There are no twos there. Thus, the element, the syllable Om is the very self. He who knows this enters the self with the self. Here two selves are described. Why? Enters the self with the self. One is this self who has not yet understood it, and the other self who has understood it and therefore knows that that is the only true self. That ends the 12th shloka of the Mandukya Upanishad, which has only 12 shlokas. That's it. It has nothing else. So you see how in 12 shlokas, the entire gamut of the study of Vedanta has been put in precisely as we can think of course. So I am going to sum this up so that we can move on in the next session to one more Upanishad, which is very interesting. It's called the Katha Upanishad. I won't say anything about it now because it's not only Katha Upanishad, it's also a Katha, it's a story. So, but it's not called Katha Upanishad because it's a story. It's Katho, not Katha, but it's a Katha, it's a story. Now summing up, human beings, you and I, have three states of existence. One, waking state. We don't have to explain waking state. I think we know what waking state is. Although many a time we are also not fully awake. You know why? When I am listening to something or doing something and my mind is elsewhere, I am not fully awake. One has to perfect oneself even in the waking state. I think if you are perfect in the waking state, the other states will fall in place. Because see, deep sleep we have no control. Dream we have no control. Waking, yes, we have. So, to touch any of these states described and discussed, we need to perfect the waking state, because that is the only thing that we have in our hands. What do I mean by perfecting? That means we have five senses. Be alert with all the five senses. It won't help if you shut them off. Be alert, because when you listen carefully, fully with complete attention, not only the ear is listening, but the mind is also listening. Can you imagine? The ear can be open, but if your mind is somewhere else, there is no listening taking place. There may be basically comparisons. Very often we don't listen to anything because we are comparing. So and so said something, so and so said something, now this guy says. So half our energy is spent on that comparison. It's not listening. The whole trick is done if you are really listening carefully. So the ear is so important, the senses are so important, and they work only when you are awake, waking state. Which is why truth in the Vedas is called the Shruti, that which is heard. And when the Shruti or the Vedic teachings are heard properly with an unprejudiced mind, straight, in one split second you have understood what it is all about. So, waking state, while we discuss dream, deep sleep, turiya, the only thing in our hands at the moment is the waking state. Other states we can speculate, but we don't have it with us right now. So therefore, the sound ah, which represents the waking state, is as important or perhaps more important than anything else. Because even if a change has to take place, it has to take place in the waking state. It cannot take place in any other, because we have no control over the dream and deep sleep. It has to take place now. Therefore, keep everything clear and one-pointed. One-pointed attention is essential because we are studying something so important that we cannot afford to have one part of the mind here and another part on which hamburger you are going to eat next. You need to stay where you are. So one-pointed attention is important. Which, when can it happen? Only in waking state. Now the other thing, we discuss Shushupti and Turiya. They seem so similar. But the only difference is that in Turiya one is aware, while in Shushupti one is not. Right? Now why is it that one is not aware in deep sleep? Because we have various desires that control our mind and not allow it to be free. If we are free of that, knowing that the waking state is similar to the dream state, and when the waking state is gone, the dream state becomes real. When the dream state is gone, the waking state becomes real. Then we look at things in a different way. We say what we think is solid, is it really so? Or is there something? We will come to this also. I want to discuss this matter also as we go on to what is solid, what is weight, what is color. I want, so not today. We don't. So what I am trying to say is, in this waking state, if the mind has become calm and quiet and understands that there is no point in rushing around, you need to settle the mind down and be quiet. Such a settled mind which is quiet and which has discovered that the only thing to be desired is the peace and the happiness and the bliss that are within. Now such a mind, when it goes into deep sleep, it awakes into Turiya. Now the training can only be done in waking state. You can't do it there because you have no control there. I hope you understand what I am trying to say. The Mandukya Upanishad is not teaching that you should continue to sleep and you will go into Turiya. This cannot happen. In that way, all lazy guys would have touched Turiya already, all sleeping all the time. That's not what it means. It means keep your mind sharp, quiet. Now, this is where we need to. The Yogashastras, the science of yoga, teaches you how to bring this about in the waking state. And it's only through this that one can touch that which Vedanta has been describing all the time. So, what does the Yoga Sutra say? Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the silencing of the vrittis or the fluctuations of the mind. That's all. There's no other connotation. When you say yoga, it means, according to Patanjali, it's the stilling of all the distractions of the mind. All the tensions and contradictions and tensions that happen, stilling that is the practice of yoga. So what happens when it is stilled? The mind is fully awake and is not caught up in anything. Such a mind, when it goes to sleep, into deep sleep, it awakes into Turiya. Till then it is caught up, bundled up, it's still in deep sleep. However, I am saying again, you cannot touch Turiya through deep sleep. Not possible. You can touch it through wakefulness, fully awakened. So think about this. I know sometimes it's a little confusing. As we go along, I am hoping that we get more clarity into this matter. So we can have some questions regarding this topic which we discussed today. Don't ask me how to enter Turiya because I am not capable of telling you exactly. If that was the case, the rishis who wrote this would have told you. See, step 1, 2, 3, enter Turiya. All this is discussed only for you to become aware and understand. And then it has to come from you, not from me. Because why? What I have, you have. You all have wakefulness. You all have dreams. You all have deep sleep. Turiya, you may not have known it, but it is there, waiting to be activated, let's say. Yes, sir.
So,
Wait. I want to tell you a joke. 1 second. Any Kerala people here in this? No. Then I can bravely tell this joke. Well, I am from Kerala, doesn't matter. Apparently, in 1 year in Dubai, it hardly rains, but that year even that rain was not there. So the Sheikh made a proclamation that all the citizens should gather and pray for rain. So all the citizens gathered and prayed for the rain. Next day in Kerala it rained heavily. You know what? So anyway, so now that we have broken the seriousness, let's ask question.
thank you, sir. Sarthak?
So my question is actually, is there any truth to when we say that somebody has hidden potential or inbuilt potential? I mean, when we say that someone is born with a gift, is there any truth to it? And if yes, then how much of talent is that inbuilt potential, and how much of it is the work done?
Right. This is a good question. Actually, I believe that certain people have inbuilt talents. Having said that, that talents can remain throughout your life and die with you if you don't put an effort to open it up. So, if you have hidden talent, somebody has to first discover this talent in you. It can be spiritual, it can be material, it can be anything. From my understanding, the brain has much more. Let's not talk about the mind because we don't know anything about the mind right now, at the moment. We know the brain, at least we know that it is responsible for the whole system. So, suppose you have, I believe, I understand that we normally use only 20% of our brain for everything, whatever, even for nuclear physics to study, we use 20% of our brain. The neurologists know that today. It's not a secret. So, what happens to the 80%? It must have certain things which we don't know about. Now, my theory is out of this normal 20%, that some people have the 21st part also working, 1 point up. Such persons are said to have a hidden talent. But even that talent goes unfulfilled if one doesn't work towards it. So the first thing is to identify and say, yes, this guy has this talent. For that you may require help from outside. Unless you're so intelligent that you have discovered I have a talent. Okay, second step, if I have a talent, how do I develop it into something that is achievable, right? So that you need instruction, that you need some guidance on how to do this. I am sitting here, there is a light here, today I don't know, I just switch on and it comes. It was Edison who first developed the electric bulb. Today it's effortless for us, hard work, but he was talented, 100%. Okay. When he was asked about his achievement, somebody asked him, you must be highly inspired. He said, yes, inspired I agree, 1% inspiration. Then they said 99%, he said perspiration. So while we can identify the talent, to explore this talent and to make it fructify into something useful, we need to put some hard work on it. However, I believe that some people are born with some talents. It's not as if they are. Otherwise, all people would be doing the same thing. Some are doing something, there are talents in all human beings. Both are important. So, if you please remember, the first sentence, as I said, is the talent has to be first detected, either by yourself or by somebody who is watching you and who knows how to. Once it is identified, then you have to put work into it to manifest it.
Thank you, sir.
I think you have talent, huh? Believe me. You need to work it out.
Hopefully, I identify it.
Sir,
Okay.
can I invite Neha now?
Yes, please. Neha, yesterday, day before, she was still there asking questions. Good.
So my question was, are these states
Neha, I
like?
can't see you. Ah, now I can see you. Yeah. You're
So my
staying.
question was that all these four states, are these uh, accessible sequentially, or we can go from one hop from one state to the, like from awakeness, if we can hop to Turiya straight away, or do I have to go through all these states?
See, now you're discussing a technique. As of now, we were discussing only the situation, not the technique. But what you should remember what I said some time back, that the only way to touch Turiya is not through deep sleep, not through dreams, but through wakefulness. So, and also these are not sequential. To go to Turiya, you need not go through dream, deep sleep and then touch Turiya. You have to understand the concept of Turiya, you have to understand the concept of Shushupti, deep sleep, and also understand the concept of dreams. But they are not sequential, like you don't go from one state to another, it is not like that. In the waking state, if you have understood all these three states, then in the waking state itself Turiya will occur in full awareness. When in waking state, all your other senses will stop working, you are not in sleep, you are not dreaming, and then there is an awareness which is blissful, which has no conditionings, which is free. It can happen only in the waking state. Again, I hope I got your question properly.
Yeah, that was the question. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So stay awake.
I'll try. I'm trying.
Okay. All right. Next.
Dheeraj Madan wanted to ask a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I had a question that this word Anand, in the sixth shloka, you mentioned when you were describing the deep sleep state, you
Anand
said it's
Bhuk, yes.
Anandmaya and Anand Bhuk. So
Yes.
Anand, like of course we use it in normal Hindi also. That
Anand.
like means bliss, enjoyment, or
Uh,
anything. But, like what is the precise meaning in Vedant for the word Ananda? And like also like even in Vedanta, so there is this concept of Anandamaya Kosha or Anandamaya when you were describing the deep sleep. But then you also say Brahman is also Sat-Chit-Ananda. So is the Anand in Brahman and Anand in the Anandamaya Kosh? Like what's the difference between them?
okay. Now, this might appear technical to many people who are listening, but anyway, since you asked me the question, um, according to Vedanta studies, the human being or the human organism has been, in its experience, it goes through different koshas, which means sheaths. The human body which exists with food is called Anandamaya Kosha. Then there is so it goes on like that, and finally you come to what is known as Anandamaya Kosha, but that is not final. There is a Vijnanamaya Kosha above that. So the understanding of this Anandamaya Kosha sheath leads to Vijnanamaya Kosha. So here is where, now in the Vedantic textbooks, the supreme reality Brahman is described as Sat-Chit-Ananda. Correct, you said it. Now, here it means Sat, which is the reality, as opposed to what we think is real. It may be different from what we think is real. And Chit means it is conscious. It's not Padhartha, it's not a material object. It's conscious, it's consciousness. And what is the quality that the consciousness experiences of the reality? Ananda. So, Ananda or happiness is considered to be the essential nature of the supreme reality, the Brahman. Okay. Now, in Anandamaya Kosha, you begin to understand this blissful reality of the Brahman. Right. But that Ananda also, if the mind is moving down from the Anandamaya Kosha, it ceases to exist. So, there is a stage where you go to Anandamaya Kosha and you experience the bliss of the Brahman. But you can't stay there always, you come back. Right. Now, the advanced Vedantic definition of the Supreme Brahman is Anantamanandam Brahma. So, there is a distinction between Ananda and Anantamanandam. That means that Ananda which does not cease ever, that is the Brahman. The other Anandas which we feel, even in meditation, little bit, it's part of the Anandamaya Kosha. When one touches the Vijnanamaya Kosha, then there is unending bliss, whether you are awake or in dream or deep sleep, there is no difference out there. It remains the same, Anantam Anandam. This is the distinction. Endless and which has an end, even though it takes long time perhaps. I hope you got what I am trying to.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Like just
So
one
why are you,
side.
I have a question, why are you studying Vedanta? What is the reason? Otherwise you can't come up with Anandamaya Kosha and all. What
Oh, right. Actually, yeah, I was watching some other videos on YouTube. They were by another person who was Swami Sarvapriyanand.
Okay.
He was from that
Ramakrishna.
Ramakrishna
Yeah,
order.
yeah, I know.
So I
Nice.
know, but yeah, of course, like it's always great to interact with different people. And like I
Absolutely.
haven't gone under any guru. Like I was just watched some
Don't go
YouTube
under.
videos, some books I've
Going
studied.
under going under a guru is like going under the knife. Don't.
Yeah, yeah. So this mostly I've been like pursuing by just watching some videos on YouTube, and I have bought some books also. So I try to read them when I get time.
Good.
So,
Good. 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 Good to study always and understand. Yeah.
And just one question that, like, I have also seen that many people in Vedanta, many of the Vedanta teachers, they have like a suffix of Anand in front of the name itself. They add.
Now that is not to do with Vedanta.
That's more of like their specific
It's a
organization.
title like Sat-Chit-Ananda. Some people are called Sachidananda, Swami Sachidananda. So that Ananda is added in the end with the understanding or expectation that they are living in bliss. But some I find live in abject grief, but it doesn't matter. They are supposed to live with happiness. So that Ananda title is added on to it. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Next.
Uh, Vasudha had asked the question yesterday, but she has raised hand again. So should we give her a
Yeah,
chance?
surely. Vasudha.
Hi, sir. Can you see me now?
Hello, yeah, I can see.
Thanks for the opportunity to ask the question. So, when we talk about one pointed attention, is it about the balance of thoughts about different tasks that we're supposed to do and be fully present with them? Or is it about doing only one task in a stipulated period of time? In short, my question is one pointed attention even possible in a fast paced environment with many different distractions? So, does the meaning of unpointed attention change for us in this yuga?
No, it doesn't change in this yoga. The meaning of one pointed attention means whatever task you're doing, put your complete attention on that task. It could be a task, it could be thinking task or a working task, whatever be the thing you're doing. Put your one pointed attention on it fully, and then you can shift to something else. Now when you are a practitioner of yoga, you learn something called pratyahara, which means that you become an expert in shifting your one pointed attention, from one thing to another at the flick of a switch. It's not as if your mind is scattered on so many things. It's one pointed, but one pointedly it can shift from one thing to another, and there it becomes one pointed. This is the only possibility there in the modern world, especially. Otherwise we are in trouble. So, for that, what is the first step then? Learn how to be one pointedly attentive to something. This is what we should practice, and this is the practice which is called dhyana. Complete attention. A yogi is not one who gives attention to something else when he is driving on the road. You know how dangerous it is. Suppose you meditate when you are driving, what happens? What happens to the poor guy on the road? Forget yourself. So, when you are driving, you are driving. Your attention is on the road. When you are listening to music, you are listening to music. When you are working in your college or your desk or in your office, you put complete attention to it. Such a person who succeeds in doing that through practice becomes actually without stress, because there are no two things working in the mind. Here what happens, I am doing something and then my mind is going somewhere, I want to pull it back and keep it here, because then I am interested in that, it cuts this and goes there. No, learn how to sit down and do what you want to do at this point and not be distracted by anything. This is practice. This is the actual meaning of the practice of attention. And I think it is possible even in this modern world. I don't think the concept has changed. Adaptation has changed. How to adapt it, that has changed. Okay.
Grishma Sharma wants to ask.
Sure. So my question is very simple since I am having a psychology background, so I am just relating
Nice.
everything. Yeah, thank you so much. So is this Tura stage is equivalent to pre-consciousness? Means because we are aware but we don't remember what we are sensing. So is it so?
Carl Jung, have you read any works by Jung?
Yes.
Yeah.
Archetype model.
Archetype and collective consciousness.
Collective
The collective
consciousness.
unconscious. Similar, but not the same. You're going, Jung goes very close to that. Very close to that. And I must also tell you that Jung made a very good study of the serpent power by John Woodruff, which is a discussion on the chakras which are in the yogic system. And he correlated it with the collective unconscious and found out that there are designs and symbols by which one can delve deep into the consciousness. But when you say Turiya, Turiya is the ultimate state of consciousness where one is aware of only awareness, pure awareness, which has all the seeds of the collective unconscious in it. Yeah, tell me.
So my question is that one is true sensation and another thing is memory out of those sensation.
Memory?
So you were saying
Say that
memory
again.
out of those. One is sensation and another thing is memory out of sensation.
Memory out of, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this Tura stage is combining all these things like sensation, memory, and everything.
In Turiya state,
Yeah.
there is complete awareness.
Okay.
And the awareness is something which is now, not in the past. Since it is not in the past, there is no question of memory. You see what I am trying to?
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, Ratnesh has been waiting. Yeah. Should that be the last question, sir? Or?
I think so, yeah.
Ratnesh.
I think you should be kind enough to make that the last question. Yeah.
So, sir, my question is, how can we get rid of the comparing state of mind?
Okay, got it. So, how do we get it? First, we should know that it is essential to get rid of the comparison. Make it clear to your mind, to yourself, that if I compare, half my energy is spent in comparison and not to listening to what is being said. This thought has to come to your mind first. That is the first step. If this becomes deeply set in your consciousness, then when you are listening to something, you will be listening to only that. You will not allow your mind to compare. You can do one thing practically, say that I will do all the comparisons after listening. Set apart everything and say, now I am only listening. And the end, then I will go home and then I will compare and see what did this fellow say, what did that fellow say. I'll compare afterwards. Don't start comparing when you're listening. Now, for that, the first thought that should become strong in your mind is that if you compare, you cannot listen. I mean, you can listen, but that is hearing, not listening. There is a difference between hearing and listening. Listening is when you are completely listening to something as if you are listening to something new. You know what I mean? New and now. I hope you got what I am trying to say. Huh?
Yes, sir, I got it.
You got it.
Thank you,
I
sir.
thought you were saying I am trying to get it. You got it. Thank you. I think we should end this session now because it's time. I am very happy with your students. Actually, they're open minded and they're listening, they're working. Whether they agree or disagree, that's not the problem. Attention is the problem. If that is there, then we can proceed. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jyoti.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you for
sir.
your time.
Thank you, all of
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.